Dr. Anya Sharma believed that history was not a collection of facts, but a chorus of ghosts. Her job was to listen to them. She was a psychic archaeologist, though her official title within the clandestine government program was Temporal Resonance Analyst. The program's name was Project Echo. Its purpose was to listen to the past. The technology was subtle, misunderstood even by the men who funded it. It was not a time machine. It was an amplifier for the soul. Anya's unique, innate psychic sensitivity, combined with a suite of sophisticated neuro-enhancers, allowed her to tune her consciousness to the faint, residual emotional and sensory echoes left behind in places where intense events had occurred. She didn't see the past. She felt it. Her workshop was a place of absolute silence, a stark white, soundproofed room known as the echo chamber. In the center sat a single, heavily cushioned recliner, wired with a filigree of silver-threaded sensors. This was her vessel, her gateway into the phantom pains and forgotten whispers of history. Today, her handler, a perpetually tired-looking man named Jennings, stood by the door, holding a slim data slate. He was the bridge between her strange, intuitive work and the world of budgets and military objectives. "We have a new assignment for you, Anya," he said, his voice flat, betraying no emotion. "A high-priority one. We're moving on from the Civil War battlefields." Anya opened her eyes, her mind still emerging from the faint, lingering scent of gunpowder and sorrow from her last session at Gettysburg. "Where to?" Jennings slid the slate onto a small table beside her chair. On the screen was a single satellite image of a vast, empty expanse of desert, followed by a set of coordinates and a gate. "Foster Ranch, near Corona, New Mexico. The echo is faint, nearly 75 years old, but the energy signature of the event was significant." He paused, letting the weight of the date settle in the quiet room. July 8th, 1947. Anya felt a chill despite the room's perfect temperature control. She didn't need to ask. Every researcher in their esoteric corner of the government knew what that date and location meant. Roswell, the foundational myth of modern UFOlogy, the event that had been analyzed, debated, and debunked for decades. "I thought that was settled," she said quietly. "Weather balloon." Jennings offered a rare, thin smile. "The official story is the official story. We're interested in the unofficial one. We want to know what really happened out there, Anya. We want to know what the echo remembers." He left her alone in the silent white room. Anya looked at the coordinates on the screen, a gateway to the most famous secret in American history. She leaned back in the chair, placed the silver discs of the sensors on her temples, and closed her eyes, preparing to tune her mind to a ghost story that had been waiting a lifetime to be heard. Anya took a slow, deep breath, letting the sterile quiet of the echo chamber fill her lungs. The process began, not with a jolt, but with a hum. A low, resonant frequency vibrated through the chair, a carrier wave for her consciousness. Her mind, honed by years of practice, detached from her physical body and drifted into the digital static generated by the machine. This was the hardest part, finding the signal in the noise. The past was not a neat recording. It was a chaotic ocean of every thought, feeling, and event that had ever happened, all overlapping, all decaying. She was finding one specific ripple from one specific day. She focused on the data Jennings had given her. July 8th, 1947, a violent thunderstorm over the New Mexico desert. The crash. She used the storm as her anchor, searching the static for the psychic residue of lightning, thunder, and rain. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing, only the gray, meaningless hiss of time. But then she caught it, a flicker. The distinct, sharp scent of ozone, the smell of the air just after a lightning strike. She latched onto it, pulling the thread with her mind. The static began to recede, and the sensations grew stronger. She felt the cool splash of heavy rain on hot, dry earth. She smelled the desert creosote bushes, their pungent, oily perfume released by the storm. She felt the oppressive weight of the heat even through the downpour. The world of 1947 began to coalesce around her, not as a picture, but as a symphony of raw feelings.
As she focused deeper, the general echo of the storm gave way to a single, dominant perspective. It was sharp, clear, and utterly alien. The consciousness was ancient, vast, and it was moving at an impossible speed. Through its senses, Anya felt the ship. It wasn't a machine of metal and wires, it was alive. She felt the intricate, organic pathways that coursed with light, the vessel's skin flexing as it moved through the upper atmosphere. The pilot and the ship were one, a single symbiotic entity. Then came the impact. It wasn't an explosion or a mechanical failure. Anya felt it as a sudden, sickening tear. A bolt of lightning, a natural, chaotic surge of planetary energy, had struck the living ship. But it hadn't damaged it physically, it had torn a hole in its dimensional fabric. The ship wasn't just crashing, it was being pulled apart between realities. Through the pilot's senses, Anya saw the sky rip open. It wasn't fire, but something far stranger. It was a wound in the sky, bleeding pure, white energy. The world outside twisted into impossible shapes. The calm, curious mind of the pilot was flooded with a single, overwhelming sensation that had no human equivalent. But the closest word was surprise. There was no pain, no fear, not yet, only a profound, shattering shock at this sudden, violent interaction with a world so physically chaotic. The descent was a dizzying spiral of sensory overload. The pilot fought to hold its ship and itself together. It tried to seal the dimensional tear, but the raw energy of the thunderstorm was too powerful. Anya saw the pilot's immense effort, the strain of a will holding back the disintegration of its own reality. The last thing she experienced before the echo momentarily blanked out was the ground rushing up to meet them, a blur of brown earth and green scrub, and the pilot's final, detached thought before impact. So this is what it feels like to become part of a world. The echo stabilized, flickering back into existence. The chaos of the crash was over. Now there was only stillness. Anya was looking up from the ground, her perspective just inches from the desert floor. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle. The pilot's consciousness was weak, fragmented, but its overwhelming emotion was not pain, it was fascination. Anya experienced the world through senses she couldn't name. She could feel the intricate network of roots in the soil beneath her, a silent, slow-motion world of life. She could perceive the magnetic field of a planet as a low, constant hum. But most powerfully, she could taste the air. It was a complex symphony of scents, the wet, mineral tang of the soil, the sharp perfume of the sagebrush, the clean, crisp scent of ozone left by the storm. To the pilot, a being from a likely sterile or non-biological ship, This raw, chaotic, living world was a sensory explosion. Its awareness focused on a single small yucca plant growing nearby. Anya felt the immense curiosity as it analyzed the plant structure, the waxy coating on its leaves designed to preserve water, the sharp spike on its tip designed for defense. It perceived the plant not as an object, but as a fellow life form, a masterpiece of survival, perfectly adapted to its harsh, beautiful world. There was a deep, resonant feeling of appreciation, of reverence. The pilot in its final moments was not concerned with its own demise. It was utterly captivated by the simple, profound reality of life on this strange new planet. It had spent millennia traveling through the sterile silence of the void, only to crash land in a place so bursting with complex, messy, beautiful life. The dominant feeling Anya received from the echo was not tragedy, but a strange and powerful sense of discovery.
The gentle rhythm of discovery was broken by a new sound, the crunch of boots on gravel. Anya felt the pilot's awareness shift, focusing on an approaching presence. Through the echo, she saw him, a man in sturdy boots, worn jeans, and a cowboy hat, his face weathered by the sun. It was Mac Brazel, the rancher who had discovered the crash site. Anya braced for the pilot's fear, the reaction to a potential threat, but it never came. Instead, the echo was filled with the same intense, analytical curiosity it had shown for the yucca plant. It perceived the human as another fascinating local life form. It sensed the complex electrical signals in his brain, the rush of blood through his veins, the intricate dance of his biology. The man stopped a few yards away, his eyes wide with disbelief at the strange, shimmering debris scattered across the field. The pilot's consciousness, flickering and weak, gathered its remaining energy. It knew it could not speak, but it had to communicate. Anya felt the attempt as a soft wave of energy, a psychic projection. The pilot wasn't sending words, it was sending a feeling. It was a complex sensation of peace, of non-aggression, of profound respect. It was a message that said, "I mean you no harm. I am in awe of this place. I am sorry for trespassing." She felt the rancher's confusion. He couldn't understand the message, but he felt a part of it. The echo registered his initial shock, giving way to a strange sense of calm. He wasn't afraid. He was just utterly bewildered. The pilot, its energy spent, let the connection fade. It had made contact. It had been seen by one of the world's dominant life forms, and the interaction had been one of mutual, peaceful awe. For the dying entity, it was a moment of profound significance. It had not only discovered a new world, it had briefly connected with it. As its life force faded, the pilot's consciousness turned away from the world around it and focused inward for one final monumental task. It gathered every last shred of its energy, every remnant of its being, into a single, focused point. Anya felt this as an immense pressure building in her own mind, the echo becoming almost unbearably intense. The pilot was preparing to send its final message, a report to its home, light years away. Anya braced herself for the contents. She expected coordinates, distress signals, technical data about the crash. That was what her superiors at Project Echo wanted. But what came through was something else entirely. It wasn't a message of words. It was a compressed torrent of pure sensory data, a lifetime of experience packed into a single, desperate burst. Anya felt it all. She felt the pilot's memory of its own ancient, silent world. She felt the long, lonely journey through the cold void between stars. And then, she felt its analysis of Earth. The message was a love letter. It was a hymn of praise to a world it had only known for a few hours. It broadcast the scent of the rain, the complexity of a single blade of grass, the chaotic beauty of a human's neural activity. It sent images of the planet's vibrant, teeming biosphere, a system so complex and aggressive and beautiful it defied the pilot's understanding. And woven through it all was the core of the message, a directive transmitted with all the force the dying pilot could muster. It was a warning, but not for humanity.
It was a warning for its own kind. The message was, I have found the anomaly, a world where life is not a single unified consciousness, but a billion competing individual sparks. It is chaotic, it is violent, it is fragile, and it is the most precious thing I have ever encountered. Our directive of non-interference must be absolute. This world is a unique cosmic experiment. To touch it, to change it, would be the greatest sin. Observe only, protect it, let it grow. The broadcast ended. The pilot's consciousness, having given its last testament, finally dissolved into a peaceful, empty silence. The connection broke. Anya opened her eyes, gasping, the sterile white of the echo chamber a painful shock after the intensity of the pilot's memories. She felt a profound sense of loss, a grief for a being she had never met but had known intimately. Hours later, she sat in a cold, windowless briefing room. Jennings and two high-ranking Air Force officials sat across the table from her, their faces impassive. She had given them her full report, her voice still trembling with the emotion of the experience. She described the pilot's curiosity, its peaceful intent, and the final powerful message of preservation. When she finished, there was a long silence. The two officials exchanged a look she couldn't decipher. It was Jennings who finally spoke, his voice laced with a familiar, weary disappointment. "A warning to protect Earth?" he said, steepling his fingers. "Dr. Sharma, that's a very poetic interpretation." "It's not an interpretation," Anya insisted. "It's what I felt. It's what it sent." The pilot of an advanced interstellar craft crashes on our planet, and its last message is to tell its friends to leave us alone because our plants are pretty? Forgive me, doctor, but that sounds incredibly naive. She could see it in their eyes. They couldn't or wouldn't accept it. They had been hoping for schematics, for coordinates to a homeworld, for weaknesses they could exploit. They had been hoping for a threat, because threats are simple. Threats justify budgets and black projects. A message of peace and preservation was useless to them. "It's a deception," the other official concluded. "A do not interfere warning is a classic strategy. It implies there is something here of immense value that they want to keep for themselves. This chaotic biosphere could be a resource, a weapon. This entire message is a trick to keep us from looking." Anya stared at them, a wave of despair washing over her. They were twisting the most profound, beautiful message she had ever encountered into a justification for their own paranoia. They hadn't heard the echo. They had only listened to their own fears. The truth of Roswell, she realized, wasn't just buried under a cover story about a weather balloon. It was buried under layers of human suspicion. "We need you to go back in, Anya," Jennings told her the next day. "But not to the pilot. We need a different perspective. We need to verify." Her new assignment was to tune to the echoes of the soldiers from the Roswell airfields who had conducted the cleanup operation. Reluctantly, Anya agreed. She returned to the chamber, the sense of dread now a cold companion. This time, the echo was jarringly different. It was human, and it was terrified. She connected to a young corporal, barely 20 years old. She felt his pounding heart as he was woken in the middle of the night, briefed in hushed, serious tones, and driven out to the debris field. Through his eyes, she saw the scene, the strange, shimmering metallic fragments scattered over a square mile, thin as foil but impossible to bend or burn. She felt his awe and his primal fear of the unknown. Then she felt the orders, coming down from a grim-faced captain. "You will not speak of this. Not to your bunkmates, not to your families, not to your priest. What you see here did not happen. What you touch does not exist. We are collecting pieces of a weather balloon. Do you understand?" Anya felt the young soldier's mind recoiling, trying to force the lie into a space that was already filled with an impossible truth. She experienced his hands, clumsy in their thick gloves, as he picked up a piece of the debris. It was cool to the touch, and it seemed to hum with a faint residual energy. He and his fellow soldiers packed the fragments into wooden crates, their faces grim, their movements efficient and silent. The echo was filled with their shared unspoken reality. This was not a weather balloon. This was something that would change the world, and their job was to erase it. Anya felt the stark, brutal contrast between this echo and the pilots. The aliens' final moments were filled with wonder and reverence for life. The humans' first moments were filled with fear and an immediate, instinctive need to control, contain, and conceal. The tragedy of Roswell, she realized, wasn't the crash. It was the cleanup.
In the days that followed, the pressure on Anya intensified. Jennings and the military officials wanted her to re-examine the pilot's echo. They hinted that her personal, emotional response might be contaminating the data. They pushed her to find the hidden threat, the secret weapon, the technological secret they so desperately craved. "Think about it, Anya," Jennings said to her during one session, his voice calm and persuasive. "An entity with this level of technology wouldn't be sentimental. The message has to be a code for something else. Perhaps the love for our biosphere is a metaphor for a valuable resource it found here. We need you to look past the poetry and find the facts." Anya was trapped. She knew what she had felt. The echo was pure, undeniable. The pilot's final testament was one of peace, but her employers refused to see it that way. They were trying to force her to twist the truth into a shape that fit their own worldview. Her loyalty was torn. She had a duty to her country, to the project that had given her life's work meaning, but she also felt a profound duty to the memory of the dead pilot, to honor its final, benevolent message. To lie and tell them what they wanted to hear would be a betrayal of the most important discovery in history. To insist on the truth would mean they would almost certainly dismiss her findings, label her as unstable, and bury the project and its secrets forever. She spent hours walking the sterile corridors of the facility, the weight of her choice pressing down on her. She was the sole ambassador for a civilization that no longer existed. She was the only one who had heard its true voice. And now she was being asked to silence it, to translate its song of wonder into a declaration of war. The silence of the facility corridors felt different now, echoing with the moral weight of her decision. Late one night, Anya made a decision. She entered the echo chamber alone, sealing the door behind her. She didn't log this session. This one was for her. She tuned her mind one last time, not to the crash, not to the message, but to the pilot's final fading moments of consciousness. She pushed past the layers of awe and sadness, searching for the very last fragment of the echo. She found it. It was a flicker of a thought, the last ember of a dying mind, and it contained none of the grand cosmic concepts of the main message. It was small, simple, and exquisitely beautiful. In its last second of existence, the pilot's awareness had focused on a single, tiny desert flower growing beside its shattered vessel, a desert marigold, its bright yellow petals defiantly open to the sky after the storm. Anya experienced the pilot's final thought as a wave of pure, unadulterated joy. It was the joy of discovering a perfect, intricate, and beautiful form in a universe of chaos. The pilot wasn't thinking about its lost civilization or its own death. It was marveling at the geometric perfection of the flower's petals, the vibrant, impossible yellow of its color, the simple, stubborn fact of its existence. The last echo from the stars, the final word from an ancient alien intelligence,
was a silent, profound appreciation for a flower. Anya opened her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She finally understood. The grand message to its people was its duty, but this final, private thought was its soul. She knew what she would do. She would file a final report full of ambiguous technical jargon that would lead her superiors down a dozen dead ends. She would let them bury the project under layers of bureaucracy. The great secret of Roswell, the schematics, the weapons, the threat, would remain lost because it had never existed. She would carry the real secret alone. The truth wasn't a vast conspiracy. It was a small, quiet moment of connection. The knowledge that a traveler from the stars had died not in fear, but in a state of grace, utterly in love with the fierce, fragile beauty of our world. And that, she decided, was a secret worth keeping.